Frank had just come out holding 2 cups of cocoa when I brought up breaking up. Just because I didn't reply to your message yesterday. That project was really important. Renee needed me, he explained tiredly, but before he could finish, a woman wearing my hoodie walked out from behind him. I nodded indifferently. Yeah, I understand. I reclaimed all the assets overnight, and he was completely dumbfounded. The fog over San Francisco hadn't fully lifted yet, like a cold, damp rag draped across the mid-slope of Twin Peaks. When I pushed open the door to the penthouse apartment, what greeted my eyes wasn't the emptiness I perhaps should have grown used to, but a glaring shade of dark red. It was a Stanford University hoodie, washed so many times it had faded a bit, with a drop of acrylic paint on the collar that I had accidentally splashed on years ago. It was Frank's most treasured piece of clothing, having witnessed our entire journey from a leaky basement in Berkeley to this penthouse apartment overlooking the Bay Bridge. At this moment, this piece of clothing was draped over a petite girl. Renee was curled up on our Italian Swede sofa, even though it seated 6 with her slender bare legs exposed, gripping a game controller in her hands, yelling and shouting as she steered the race car on the screen toward the finish line. She heard the door open and sprang up like a startled fawn, the hem of that oversized hoodie swaying with her movement, revealing a glimpse of lace shorts peeking out from underneath. Cynthia Jai, how come you are back early? Her voice had that drawn-out tone typical of Gen Z, innocence laced with a hint of awkwardness at being caught. Frank was walking out of the kitchen carrying 2 cups of hot cocoa. When he saw me, the smile on his face froze for a second, then quickly shifted into that all-too-familiar placating expression. Cynthia, wasn't your flight tomorrow? He walked over, naturally reaching to take my suitcase. Though his eyes unconsciously drifted toward Renee, there is a power outage at Renee's apartment. You know she has claustrophobia. She'd have a panic attack staying there alone. We have a spare guest room anyway, so I told her to come stay here for the night. I looked at him, this man I'd loved for 10 years. From the scrawny teenager in foster care who always shielded me behind him, to Silicon Valley's hottest tech rising star now, his features were still handsome, but there was an unfamiliar self-righteousness about him. So you just gave her my spare access card. I didn't let go of the suitcase handle, my knuckles turning slightly white from gripping too hard, and let her wear this outfit. Frank furrowed his brow, seemingly thinking I was being unreasonable. The clothes are because she got caught in the rain and might catch a cold. Cynthia, don't be so sensitive. It is just an old outfit. And the access card is to make it easier for her to drop off documents when working overtime. You know, Nebula is preparing for the next funding round, and everyone's been crazy busy. Renee came over at this moment, too, her eyes red like a little bunny who had suffered the world's greatest grievance. I am sorry, Sister Cynthia. It is my fault. I was really too scared. That darkness made me unable to breathe. Brother Frank was just being kind. I'll take off the clothes and give them back to you right now. As she spoke, she made a move to lift up the hem of her clothes. Enough! I coldly interrupted this pathetic performance, a wave of nausea churning in my stomach. This wasn't the first time. Ever since Renee joined the company, this kind of drama had been playing out like a soap opera without a script, anytime and anywhere. The printer jammed and she had to cry. A client gave her a hard time and she needed Frank to come to her rescue. Even when I wanted to have a private anniversary dinner with Frank, she could call and say she was having an emotional breakdown right then and needed the boss's psychological counseling. And Frank was always that savior who came running whenever called. Renee, go to the guest room, change your clothes, and leave. I stared into her eyes and said, word by word, now. Renee shrank back and looked at Frank for help. Cynthia, it is so late, and it is not safe outside. Frank stepped in front of her, his tone carrying some impatience. You weren't this unreasonable before. When we were at the foster center, didn't we also get through by taking care of each other? How did you become so cold-blooded? Those 2 words lashed across my face like a whip. Cold-blooded. Is it because I don't have that kind of boundaryless sympathy overflowing like he does? I took a deep breath, suppressing the suffocating feeling in my chest that felt like it was about to explode. Frank, do you know why I came back early this time? He froze for a moment, his eyes somewhat evasive. Why? Because I just got my biopsy report from the hospital. The air froze in that instant. Frank's face instantly turned deathly pale. The 2 cups of hot cocoa in his hands wobbled, spilling a few drops of brown liquid onto the floor. Biopsy. His voice trembled slightly. Why didn't you tell me before? What is the result? Looking at his flustered appearance, my heart was strangely calm. It was the calm of utter despair. Yesterday I sent you 3 messages and made 5 calls. I took out my phone, the screen showing the record of our last conversation. Stuck on his brief busy, we'll get back to you later. At that time, Renee happened to call you about that so-called ex-boyfriend harassment. Right? I tugged at the corner of my mouth, showing a smile uglier than crying. You said you were handling an urgent PR crisis. But actually, you were just helping her move, didn't even call the police. Frank opened his mouth but couldn't make a sound. The results came back benign. I finished the sentence he was too afraid to ask, but when I sat alone in the waiting room for 5 hours, watching everyone around me with family by their side, while I was the only one staring blankly at that white wall, I kept thinking, if I was diagnosed, would you come? I would, of course I would. Frank rushed forward trying to hug me, but I stepped aside and dodged him. No, you wouldn't. I looked at him, my eyes ice cold. You'd abandon me alone on the operating table because of Renee's sudden panic attack. Or some bullshit like the printer running out of ink, because in your eyes I am not fragile enough. I don't need you enough, so I am always your second priority, Cynthia. Frank grabbed his hair in anguish. I just got used to you always being so strong. I thought you could handle everything. Yeah, I can handle everything, I nodded, my gaze passing over him to look at Renee, who was still wearing that hoodie with a stunned expression, so I've decided to handle this last mess. I turned and walked toward the bedroom without giving them another glance. Tonight I am sleeping in the master bedroom. You two do whatever you want. The moment I closed the door, I heard Frank's muffled roar in the living room and Renee's soft sobbing. But I didn't soften. I opened the closet and started packing. This wasn't out of spite, nor was it a tactic to get attention. This was cutting my losses after careful consideration. Since he loved playing savior so much, let him save to his heart's content. But this time, I am taking back the backbone I lent him and the empire we built together. The next morning, I didn't make breakfast for Frank like I usually did. The dining table that always had 2 fried eggs, 2 slices of whole wheat toast, and 2 cups of black coffee was empty today. I was wearing a sharp business suit, stepping in 3-inch heels, and rolled my suitcase out of the bedroom. Frank was curled up on the sofa, covered with a thin blanket, and woke up startled when he heard the noise. Cynthia, where are you going? His voice was hoarse with obvious dark circles under his eyes. Clearly, he hadn't slept well. To the office, I replied flatly without looking at him. I am coming too, he threw off the blanket and got up. Let's go together, I want to talk to you properly. No need. I raised my hand to check my watch. I have a morning meeting, take your time getting ready. Oh, and don't forget to have Renee wash that hoodie and return it to me, though I probably won't wear it again anyway. With that, I ignored his calls behind me, walked straight out of the apartment, and got into the ride-hailing car I had already ordered. When I arrived at the company, I didn't go straight to my office, but went to the legal department first. David, Nebula's chief legal counsel, was my college friend and also my most trusted partner. When he saw the documents I had already prepared, he wasn't surprised. He just sighed. Are you sure you want to do this, Cynthia? This is 10 years of your hard work. It is precisely because it is my life's work that I can't watch it rot in someone else's hands. I signed my name, the pen tip gliding across the paper with a rustling sound. Activate the co-founder exit clause and cash out all the preferred shares under my name at the current valuation. Also, submit this resignation letter to the board for me. David took the documents and looked at me with a complicated expression. Do you know what this means for the company's stock price? Frank will go crazy. That is his problem to worry about. I stood up and straightened the hem of my clothes. I am just taking back what belongs to me. Walking out of the legal department, I ran right into Frank and Renee, who had just arrived for work. Renee had changed into an ill-fitting professional outfit today, still looking delicate and pitiful, holding a Starbucks cup in her hands while following closely behind Frank. Seeing me, Frank's eyes lit up and he quickly walked over. Cynthia, listen to me. Frank, it is work hours now. I coldly interrupted him. Whatever it is, save it for the meeting later. Meeting? Frank was stunned for a moment. There is no meeting scheduled for today. There is now. I looked at Renee behind him, the corner of my lips curling into a mocking arc. Also, Miss Renee, this is a company, not your personal playground. As the CFO's assistant, the report you sent me yesterday had 3 data errors, which caused the finance department to work 2 extra hours to correct them. If you can't handle this job, I don't mind finding a replacement. Renee's tears instantly fell. Cynthia, I didn't mean to. Don't call me Cynthia, I interrupted her. Call me Miss Griffin or CFO. Frank furrowed his brow and stepped in front of Renee. Cynthia, do you really have to be so aggressive? She is still new, still in the learning phase. New? I sneered. She has been here for 3 months already, and she can't even use the most basic Excel formulas correctly. All she does is serve tea, pour water, and play the victim. Nebula isn't a charity, and I am not here to play house with you. With that, I stopped paying attention to this nauseating pair and turned to walk into the conference room. 10 minutes later, all the company's executives were seated at the conference table. Frank sat in the main seat, looking at me somewhat uneasily. Renee sat in a corner, head lowered, wiping her tears as if she'd suffered some terrible injustice. I stood up and looked around at the familiar faces in the conference room. These were all veteran employees who had fought alongside us from the beginning, witnessing Nebula's entire journey from nothing to what it is today. I've gathered you here today to announce something important. My voice was steady, without a hint of trembling. Due to personal reasons, I've decided to resign from my position as Nebula's chief financial officer and withdraw from the board of directors. The conference room instantly erupted. What? Frank shot to his feet, knocking his chair to the ground with a loud crash. Cynthia, what kind of joke is this? How could you not discuss something like this with me? Discuss. I looked at him, not a ripple in my eyes. When you gave the stock options that belonged to me to Renee, did you discuss it with me? When you missed the fundraising roadshow to help her move, did you discuss it with me? When you ignored company rules and regulations again and again for the sake of so-called taking care of the newcomer, did you discuss it with me? Frank was dumbfounded, his face turning bright red. This is different, he argued somewhat frantically. Those were all trivial matters. How can you gamble with the company's future over such trivial things? Trivial in your eyes, but in my eyes, this is the company's bottom line, and also my bottom line. I slapped the resignation letter on the table. Frank, Nebula didn't get where it is today because of your personal charm or some bullshit sentiments, but because of rigorous systems and a professional team. Since you love playing favorites so much, then this CFO position, count me out. Also, I turned to look at David. I've already signed the equity transfer agreement. Starting today, I have nothing to do with Nebula or with Frank anymore. With that, I ignored the uproar filling the room and turned to walk out of the conference room. Frank chased after me and stopped me in the hallway. Cynthia, stop right there. He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Are you crazy? Do you have any idea what you are doing? What is the company supposed to do if you leave? Are you going to destroy everything we have over that ridiculous jealousy of yours? Jealousy? I forcefully shook off his hand, finding it utterly absurd. Frank, you still think it is because of jealousy? Don't you think too highly of yourself and too little of me? I pointed at Renee, who was sneakily peeking from not far away, my gaze full of contempt. That kind of trash who can only climb up by relying on men. She is worthy of my jealousy. I just don't want to play this game that is destined to sink with you anymore, Frank. Don't you get it yet? I didn't ruin everything. You ruined the trust and respect between us with your own hands. I gave you a chance. You just didn't take it. I stepped back, putting distance between us. From today on, we go our separate ways. You can keep playing your savior, but I am getting off this ship. I turned and walked into the elevator. Pressing the button for the first floor, the elevator doors slowly closed, shutting out Frank's shocked and angry face, and also shutting out the 10 years of my youth I'd left in this building. At that moment, I didn't cry. I just felt an unprecedented sense of relief. It was like finally waking up from a long nightmare. Though I was a bit exhausted, at least the dawn had finally come. That afternoon when I left the company, I had originally planned to go straight to the airport and fly to a destination I'd randomly picked on the map, Montana. But as if guided by some unseen force, I wanted to visit one more place. It was a foster care center in the suburbs of San Francisco. Frank and I spent our entire adolescence in that old red brick building. It held the most unbearable memories of our past, as well as the warmth of when we first relied on each other through thick and thin. I rented a car and drove along the familiar coastal highway. When I arrived, it was exactly the children's free time. The yard was filled with noise, and a few little boys were fighting over a basketball, just like Frank back in the day. I stood outside the iron fence, looking at those faces both familiar and unfamiliar, my heart a tangled mess of emotions. Just then, a flashy black Maybach pulled up not far from me. The door opened and Frank stepped out. I was a bit surprised, and before I could hide, I saw the passenger door being pushed open too. Renee was wearing a pure white dress, hopping out like an innocent angel who knew nothing of the world, and intimately linked her arm with Frank's. Wow. Frank, is this where you grew up? It is so run down, but it has that sense of history. She blinked her big eyes and commented with an innocent look on her face. Frank affectionately patted her head. Yeah, conditions were tough back then, but now that I have the means, I want to improve the environment for the kids here. Also to show you that even if you come from a bad background, as long as you work hard, there is still hope. I felt all the blood in my body rushing to the top of my head. This is the last sacred place for me and Frank. We once made a promise here that when we had money someday, we'd come back together to donate a library named C and F, engraved on every single brick. This was a secret that belonged only to the two of us. Our shared roots now. He brought this homewrecker and swaggered right into our memories, even treating this place as a stage to show off his successful man halo. Miss Griffin, an aged voice came from behind me. I turned around. It was Mrs. Baker, the director from back then. Her hair had turned gray, but she was still full of vigor. It really is you, Cynthia. She walked over in delighted surprise and hugged me. Long time no see, child. Are you here to see everyone too? The commotion here caught Frank's attention. He turned his head, saw me, and his expression changed instantly. Cynthia, why are you here? He let go of Renee's hand and walked over quickly, a hint of panic in his voice. Didn't you leave? What? Only you are allowed to bring your new flame here to reminisce about the hard times, but I am not allowed to revisit old haunts. I looked at him coldly. Frank, you really know how to twist the knife in someone's heart. Renee came over at this moment too, still with that timid look on her face. Cynthia, you are here too. Frank said he wanted to bring me to see where he used to live. He said it would motivate me to work harder. Don't get the wrong idea. Misunderstanding. I laughed until tears almost came out. What is there for me to misunderstand? Every blade of grass and tree here, every broken floor tile, every drafty window has a story between me and him. You think just by standing here you can share these memories? I looked at Frank, my eyes full of disappointment and resolve. Frank, do you know? I used to think you were my comrade, my family. No matter what difficulties we faced outside, as long as we came back here, I felt we were still one. But now, I took a deep breath and pointed at Renee. By bringing her here, you are trampling on every minute and second of our past. You've made this place dirty. Cynthia, don't go too far. Frank was somewhat embarrassed and furious. Renee meant well, and I came to donate. I want to do something good for the kids. What is wrong with that? Can you stop being so sharp-tongued all the time? Donate? I took out a check from my bag, which I had originally planned to give to the director as our joint gift after he proposed. Right in front of him, I tore the check to shreds, then scattered the pieces into the air. This is my share. I am not donating anymore. I watched the paper scraps dancing all over the sky like watching our shattered past. Because I don't want the children here to grow up and become ungrateful backstabbing wolves with no bottom line like you. Mrs. Baker, I turned to the dean, bowing deeply. I am sorry for making you witness this farce today. If there is an opportunity in the future, I'll come visit you alone, but wherever this man is, I won't show up again. With that, I didn't spare Frank another glance, turning and walking toward my car. Cynthia, wait, Frank shouted from behind, trying to catch up. But I floored the gas pedal and the car shot out like an arrow, leaving that pair and all those unbearable memories far behind. In the rearview mirror, Frank's figure grew smaller and smaller, finally becoming a blurry black dot. I rolled down the window, letting the cold wind rush in and dry the tear stains on my face. Goodbye, Frank. Goodbye, my youth. From now on, I only have myself. Back at my San Francisco apartment, I wasn't in a hurry to leave. There were still 2 days until my flight, and I wasn't the type to run away with my tail between my legs. In this city, I still had one last battle to fight. It was Nebula's biggest annual charity gala. As co-founder and former CFO, my name was still printed at the very top of the invitation. This would also be my farewell performance as I officially said goodbye to this circle. The gala was held in the ballroom of the Four Seasons Hotel. I wore a deep V-neck black velvet gown. David had accompanied me to pick it out. The cut was minimalist, yet fiercely aggressive, like an unsheathed black blade. My makeup was also unusually bold, red lips like fire, presence fully unleashed. When I walked into the banquet hall, the originally noisy crowd fell silent for a moment. Frank stood in the center of the crowd, holding a glass of champagne, chatting and laughing with several investors, and Renee, just as I expected, was standing right beside him. She was wearing a light pink strapless tulle dress, covered with tiny diamonds that sparkled under the lights. It was the gown I had custom-made 3 months ago, originally planning to wear it to this banquet. I had sent it for alterations because it didn't fit quite right at the time, but never expected it would end up on her. Seeing me come in, a flash of panic crossed Renee's face, and she instinctively hid behind Frank. Frank also saw me, his expression complicated, both amazed and somewhat guilty. "Cynthia, you came." He walked over, his tone a bit dry. "I thought you weren't coming. This is my farewell banquet. How could I miss it?" I smiled and raised my glass, my gaze falling on that pink dress. The dress is beautiful, and it fits Miss Renee quite well. I just wonder, does wearing someone else's clothes without permission feel a bit prickly? Renee's face instantly turned red, tears threatening to fall again. "Cynthia, I didn't know this was yours. Frank said this dress had been sitting at the company with no one wearing it, and told me to try it on. No one wearing it." I raised an eyebrow at Frank. "This is what you call no one wearing it. Frank, it seems your memory really needs to be checked." Frank cleared his throat somewhat awkwardly. "That was in the past. You don't wear this style anymore anyway. So what is the big deal letting Renee wear it? Don't be so petty." People around started whispering, their gazes toward Renee becoming somewhat meaningful. In this circle, flaunting around in the main wife's clothes was a major taboo. I didn't continue dwelling on this issue, but turned and walked toward the stage. Today was the day Nebula announced its successful new round of funding. According to the schedule, the CFO was to give a speech on stage. I stood before the microphone, the lights shining on my face, somewhat blinding. Below the stage were familiar faces, former partners who had fought alongside me, and competitors waiting to see me make a fool of myself. "Good evening, everyone," I spoke, my voice spreading throughout the entire hall through the speakers. "I am Nebula's CFO, Cynthia Griffin. Today is a day worth celebrating. Nebula has reached another new milestone, but I am standing here not just to celebrate, but also to say goodbye." The audience erupted in commotion. Frank's face changed dramatically as he tried to rush onto the stage to stop me, but was quietly blocked by David and several security guards. 10 years ago, Frank and I founded Nebula in a garage. Back then, we had nothing but each other and our dreams. But over these 10 years, some things have changed, and some lines have been crossed. My gaze pierced straight toward Frank and Renee below the stage. I've always believed that whether it is running a company or running a relationship, the spirit of contract and a sense of boundaries are the most important foundations. When this foundation no longer exists, it is only a matter of time before the whole thing comes crashing down. So, tonight is my last night as CFO, and also my last night as Frank's fiancée. The entire room fell into a deathly silence. I've already initiated the equity exit process and resigned from all positions. I am taking what belongs to me and the rest. I'll leave it for Mr. Frank and his very promising new assistant to mess around with. I raised my wine glass and gave Frank a distant toast. "Good luck, Frank. I hope your new flame fits you as perfectly as this stolen dress forever." With that, I tilted my head back and drained the glass, then slammed it hard onto the ground. Crash, the crisp sound of shattering was like a slap, hitting everyone hard across the face. I lifted my skirt hem and, under the stunned gazes of the crowd, strode off the stage with my head held high, heading toward the door. "Stop right there." Frank finally broke through the crowd and chased after me like a madman. At the entrance of the banquet hall, Renee also chased out, her face streaked with tears as she tried to hold me back. "Cynthia, you can't do this. You'll ruin Frank's reputation." "It is all my fault. You can hit me or scold me. Just please don't leave." That look of hers on the verge of tears, Agnon, who didn't know better, would think I was some kind of vicious villain. I stopped in my tracks, looking at this woman who had disgusted me for months. "Ruined reputation?" I sneered. "It was his own actions that ruined him. What does that have to do with me? As for you," I picked up a glass of red wine from a nearby waiter's tray and splashed it on her delicate face without hesitation, also staining that pink dress that originally belonged to me. "Ah," Renee screamed, covering her face. "This glass is a toast to your tea art." I leaned close and whispered in her ear, "Also, since this dress is dirty now, just throw it away. Just like that man I don't want anymore. You can have him too. Garbage sorting is everyone's responsibility." With that, I pushed open the door and walked into the San Francisco night. Behind me was chaos and commotion. Ahead was the unknown wilderness. But I knew I was finally free. I turned off my phone and tossed it into the passenger seat's glove compartment, as if throwing away a rotten past. The rented Cherokee sped along the Montana highway, with the endless Rocky Mountains and vast coniferous forests outside the window. The air here was dry and crisp, carrying the scent of pine resin and earth. Every breath felt like a deep cleanse for my lungs. No more San Francisco fog, no more endless reports at Nebula to deal with, and no more Frank's eyes that were always filled with guilt yet kept crossing boundaries. I could finally just be myself. I rented a cabin near Bozeman, right by the Gallatin River. The landlord was a man named Liam, a local fly fishing guide. He didn't talk much, always wore a flannel shirt worn white from use, and had a nice smell of wood shavings and tobacco on him. If you don't want to be disturbed, raise the red flag in front of the door. That was all he said when he handed me the keys. For those few days, I barely went out. I slept in the cabin, read, or just stared blankly at the river outside the window. The signal here was terrible, only 1 or 2 bars occasionally, but I felt it was a rare blessing. Until the evening of the 3rd day, I was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when a familiar black Maybach rolled up in a cloud of dust and stopped in front of my cabin. Frank got out of the car still wearing the suit from that night's banquet, all wrinkled, his tie crooked, stubble all over his chin. He looked like a total mess. When he saw me, his eyes lit up for a moment, that kind of wild joy like he'd grabbed a lifeline. It was almost blinding to me. "Cynthia, I knew you'd come here." He rushed over and shouted across the fence. "We said before, if one day we got tired, we'd come to Montana and disappear. Do you remember?" I put down the book in my hands and looked at him coldly. "I remember, but I didn't expect you'd chase me all the way here." "Cynthia, come back with me." His voice was hoarse. "I know I was wrong. I really do now. After that night, I've already fired Renee. I'll never see her again. The company can't be without you, and I can't be without you either." "Fired?" I scoffed. "Is it because she made you lose face in front of the investors, or because she really wasn't capable of doing her job?" "Frank, you are always like this, only thinking about fixing things when they've already gotten out of hand." "No, that is not it." He defended himself anxiously. "I truly realize that in this world, only you genuinely care about me. Those people, all they see is my money, my status. Only you have been with me from the very beginning. Yeah, only I was foolish enough." I stood up and walked to the fence, but I am not foolish anymore. "Frank, do you know what I've been thinking about these past few days?" He froze for a moment. "Thinking about what?" "I was thinking that day at the hospital while waiting for the biopsy results, if you had come, or even just given me a call, would our ending have been different?" I looked at him, my gaze as calm as a pool of stagnant water. "But there are no ifs. The despair I felt in that moment is something no amount of I am sorry can ever fill. Just like this fence. Even if you repair it, the nail holes will always be there. Cynthia, don't be like this." Frank covered his face in anguish. "Our 10 years together. Is it really that fragile? It is not that feelings are fragile. You are the one who wore them down to nothing." I pointed at the rolling mountains in the distance. "Look, these mountains are so solid. Wind can't blow them down, rain can't wear them away. But our feelings were like San Francisco fog. The moment the sun comes out, they're gone. Go back, Frank. Don't make me look down on you even more." Just then, a pickup truck came driving over from the distance. It was Liam's truck. He stopped the car, glanced at Frank, then looked at me, took a hunting rifle from the truck bed, leaned against the car door, and said nothing. That silent pressure made Frank flinch. "Who is he?" Frank looked at Liam warily. "My guide. And also my friend," I said flatly. "You are not welcome here, Frank. If you don't leave now, I can't guarantee Liam won't treat you like a wild bear trespassing on his territory." Frank gritted his teeth and gave me one last look, his eyes filled with too much unwillingness and regret. "I'll wait for you, Cynthia. No matter how long, I'll wait for you to change your mind." With that, he turned and got into his car. That black Maybach, like a defeated knight, slunk away and disappeared into the dust. I watched the direction where the taillights disappeared, not a ripple of emotion in my heart. "Ex-boyfriend." Liam had walked over at some point, handing me a bottle of beer. "I guess so." I took the beer and had a sip, an ex-boyfriend who expired a long time ago. Liam didn't say anything more, just quietly kept me company as we watched the sunset slowly sink into the valley. At that moment, I suddenly felt that maybe a new story was just beginning. The starry sky in Montana hung so low as if you could reach out and pluck it. The day after Frank left, I went on a trip to Yellowstone Park with Liam leading the way. We were going to see Old Faithful, the geyser that supposedly erupts every few dozen minutes. Liam said it was nature's most reliable promise. Standing by the geyser, watching the scalding column of water shoot up into the sky, piercing the clouds, the spectacular sight was breathtaking. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Liam stood beside me, his voice low. "Here, everything is real, no pretense, no deception." I nodded, about to say something, when out of the corner of my eye I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the crowd not far away. It was Frank. He hadn't left yet. He was holding a red velvet box in his hand, stumbling toward me. The tourists around us all turned to look, wondering what this somewhat crazed-looking man was trying to do. Cynthia, he rushed up to me and dropped to his knees with a thud. Marry me. He opened the box, and inside lay an enormous diamond ring, sparkling brilliantly in the sunlight. This was supposed to be my surprise for you on that anniversary. He panted heavily, his eyes fervent. I went to pick up the ring that day, and was only a bit late because of traffic. Cynthia, I really wanted to marry you. This ring is the proof. I looked at that ring and only felt it was utterly ironic. Because you were picking up the ring, you didn't even have time to reply to a message. I looked at him coldly. Frank, do you think I am an idiot? You did go pick up the ring that day, but that was at noon. What were you doing in the afternoon? You were helping Renee move, listening to her cry about how shitty her ex-boyfriend was, and even rejected my calls for her. This ring isn't your sincerity, it is your shield. I stepped back, not wanting to look at that box again. Frank, you know what? Compared to this ring, even if you had just brought me a cup of hot porridge that day, I might have been touched. But you didn't. Do you think you can buy back my trust with money? With these showy gestures? Too late. Your timing is awful, just like your sense of boundaries. The tourists around started pointing and whispering. Some took out their phones to record. This was another public execution. Only this time he brought it on himself. Frank's face went deathly pale. The box slipped from his hand and fell to the ground, the diamond ring rolling out and getting covered in dirt. Cynthia, don't do this, please, don't do this. He cried like a child, completely without his usual composure. But all I felt in my heart was disgust. Liam, let's go. I turned around and said to the man behind me. Liam nodded, stepped forward, picked Frank up like grabbing a little chicken, and pushed him aside. Don't harass my guest again. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an unmistakable authority. Frank stumbled back a few steps from the push, slumped down on the ground, watching me and Liam walk away side by side, letting out a desperate howl. But I didn't look back because I knew. Some people, once you've missed them, are never worth looking back for. That diamond ring stained with dirt. Just like our relationship tainted with blemishes, no matter how much you wipe it, it could never return to its original purity. The night we returned to the cabin. Montana had its first snow since winter began. Heavy snow sealed off the mountains, and the whole world turned into a vast expanse of white. Liam and I were trapped in the cabin, huddled around the fireplace for warmth. The firelight reflected on Liam's face, softening his originally rugged features a bit. Have you really let go? He suddenly asked me. I watched the dancing flames and stayed silent for a moment. Letting go is hard, I said honestly. After all, that was 10 years of feelings, a witness to my entire youth. But what else can I do if I don't let go? Keep digging through the trash for candy. Liam smiled and handed me a cup of hot mulled wine. You are very brave, Cynthia. Many girls like you, even knowing it is an abyss, wouldn't dare to jump out because they're afraid of change. Maybe it is because I've already died once. I took a sip of the wine, the sharp taste spreading on my tongue. While waiting outside that operating room, the old Cynthia, who only revolved around Frank, had already died. Now, I just want to live for myself. Living for yourself, that is good. Liam raised his glass and clinked it with mine. To new life. To new life. Just then, a series of urgent knocks came from outside the door. Liam and I exchanged a glance, both somewhat surprised in such heavy snow. Who would come here? Liam got up to open the door, and the wind and snow instantly rushed in. Standing at the doorway was, surprisingly, Renee. She was wearing a thin coat, shivering from the cold, her makeup all smeared, looking utterly disheveled. Cynthia, sis, please save me. The moment she saw me, she threw herself forward, trying to grab at my pants leg. Liam swiftly blocked her with quick reflexes. Let her come in and talk, I sighed. Although I despised her, I wasn't cold-hearted enough to watch someone freeze to death in the snow. Renee came inside, clutching the hot water Liam gave her, shivering for quite a while before finally recovering. Frank, no, that bastard, he abandoned me halfway, she said, crying. We had a fight on the way here because I said I wanted to go back to San Francisco and didn't want to waste time with him here. He went crazy and kicked me out of the car, telling me to get lost, saying it was all my fault that you left him. Listening to her tearful complaints, I just found it laughable. So what? What are you coming to me for? I don't have any money on me and my phone's dead. Renee looked up at me, her eyes full of hope. Cynthia, you have money, right? Lend me some so I can buy a plane ticket back. I'll never appear in front of you again, I swear. Looking at her like this, willing to do anything to survive. The last bit of anger in my heart vanished into thin air. So this was the innocent girl that Frank treasured so much. In the face of self-interest, her innocence was like a thin sheet of paper over a window one poke, and it tears right through. I can lend you money. I took out my wallet and pulled out a few bills. But this doesn't mean I forgive you. This is just charity, understand? Renee nodded repeatedly, grabbing the money like it was a lifeline. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you also. I looked into her eyes. Don't let me see you again, because next time I might not be this nice. Renee took the money and left, thanking me profusely. Watching her figure disappear into the wind and snow, I suddenly felt that this farce spanning most of America could finally come to an end. Whether it was Frank or Renee, they were just passersby in my life. And I still had to keep moving forward. Half a year later, at a tech forum in San Francisco, I had a new identity, CEO of an emerging green tech company. When I stood on the stage, confidently and calmly sharing our latest achievements, thunderous applause erupted from the audience. In the crowd, I seemed to spot a familiar figure. Frank was sitting in a corner, looking much older than half a year ago. His nebula was on the verge of bankruptcy due to the core team's departure and a broken funding chain. As for Renee, the one who once drove him crazy, I heard she had long since hooked up with another rich kid, off enjoying herself somewhere. Our eyes met in the air for a second. There was still regret in his eyes, resentment, and even a hint of longing, but I just calmly looked away as if looking at a stranger. After the speech, I ran into David backstage. Congratulations, Cynthia. He gave me a hug. You look so great now. By the way, I heard you are getting married. I smiled and nodded, raising my left hand with a uniquely designed wooden ring on my ring finger. It was handmade by Liam, no sparkling diamonds, but with the warmth of time, yes, next month in Montana. Does Frank know? David asked somewhat hesitantly. Whether he knows or not, what does it matter? I tidied up the documents. For someone I no longer care about, his joys and sorrows have nothing to do with me anymore. Walking out of the exhibition hall, the San Francisco sunlight was just right. A familiar pickup truck was parked by the roadside. Liam was leaning against the door, wearing that flannel shirt I knew so well, waving at me. I walked over quickly, threw myself into his arms, breathing in that reassuring scent of wood shavings on him. Is it over? He asked. It is over, I answered with a smile. Then let's go home, okay? Let's go home. The car started, driving off into the distance. In the rearview mirror, the city that once trapped me grew farther and farther away while the road ahead was wide and bright. I knew this was the best ending that truly belonged to me.